Welcome back to Cox Connections, a program that provides up-to-date information on events that affect you, our customers. Whether you are a resident or a business owner, it's critical that there is an emergency plan in place when there's a threat of a disaster. Bert Conley is head of Cox Virginia's Risk Management and Security, as well as leads our Business Continuity team. With him is Hui-Shan Walker, the Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of Hampton, and the representative for the Hampton Roads Emergency Management Committee. And they're here to provide us with some key tips on what you need to know in your emergency plan. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hey, let me just start off. Who needs an emergency plan?
Well, everybody should have an emergency plan. As we go into hurricane season, it could be every family, every business. Everybody should have one.
Single family, business.
Absolutely. And you should also have plans for your pets and your neighbors. You know, reach out to them. Everyone should have a plan. And Bert, businesses.
Absolutely. Everyone needs a plan, Gary, the bottom line. You need to have a plan for your families, for your community, for your neighbors, small business, large businesses, everyone.
And so what should you be thinking about in terms of this plan? What should be in the plan?
The most important key thing in the plan really is communications and ensuring that you have a plan and that you share it with all the family members. And the biggest part is really during an emergency is to have a place where you can meet all your family members, and also calling outside the area. Sometimes when it gets really busy and there's an emergency, the cell phones go down or they get so tied up, but you can call outside the area, so having a third party person.
And that place you can meet is because you may not be able to talk with one another.
Or you may not all be in the same area at the same time. You may be at work.
So what type of services can residents or businesses, what kind of services can they get within this region from the different municipalities?
Depending on the type of disaster will determine the type of services that we may be able to provide. But some examples are like sheltering. We may have emergency food stamps that we provide. Depending on the event, there may be also pet sheltering provided in some of the jurisdictions throughout the region, but really depends on the event and whether or not we need to hand out water or food or different things like that. So really encouraging residents to stay tuned to the media and their local news. Also contact their local emergency management offices.
Okay. So Bert, you know, we talked about businesses. Are there differences between small businesses, large businesses in terms of their emergency preparedness?
Yes, there are differences, Gary. When you look at a large business, a lot of times you may have regulatory compliance issues, so there are other factors that a large business would consider that a small business would not. But just as my partner said, is communication is the key. Having that plan and socializing that plan and exercising that plan is critical, whether you're a small or a large business.
So are there some tips, you know, people at home watching, you know, business owners, family members, are there some tips that they should be looking at in terms of, you know, walking around their home, or they're in a floodplain, or, you know, just what are some tips that I should be looking at as I put together this plan?
Well, Gary, you hit on the point of the flood. You know whether or not you live in a flood prone area, and also if you need flood insurance, please get it. It takes 30 days for it to go into effect. So when the storm is off the coast, trying to get it, it's too late at that time. Right. However, if you're not in a flood zone designated, your flood insurance rates are much lower, and I would still encourage everybody in the Hampton Roads region to purchase flood insurance. It's just a little extra insurance just in case something happens.
Now, Bert, I've heard, you know, everybody should have their disaster kit. What's in the kit?
The kit, the one thing, Gary, I tell you that's important to have in that kit is prescription medication. If you've got family members that have a need to have constant medication, have that in there, have a supply in there, have a plan where you can get that refilled in a time of hurricane season. And then there's some websites that we're going to share today that will show you the amount of water you should have on hand, the amount of batteries, the things you should have, the general kits. And FEMA's got a really good site you can go to, and you can kind of work your plan and pick out the things that you need for your particular location. Same with small business. With the Department of Homeland Security has a nice website, and you can kind of click on that self-service and pick the items that you need.
You know, we've had a few emergencies in our region before. What are some of the common mistakes that you've seen, Hui-Shan or Bert? What are some of the mistakes that...
Some of the challenges that I've seen over time really is, again, not having a plan of action and everybody knowing it, or having their supply kit ready to go, and also for their pets, making plans for their pets and loved ones. And then also staying tuned and taking the advice of local officials. Should we ask for an evacuation or from a low-lying area, please do. Your safety is number one.
Bert, any common mistakes you've seen from a business perspective?
Yes, Gary. Unfortunately, a lot of folks will overlook the fact that having your personal documents, your professional documents, your business resiliency plans, having them stored off-site in their location. Also backing up your infrastructure on the IT side so that you have that stored off-site. A lot of times that's overlooked, and all that is stored at your primary business, and then in the event of emergency, you've lost it.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, technology, clearly has changed, and I guess there are things that businesses can do today on the front end to make sure that if there is, that telecommunications can be moved to some other location relatively quickly. Again, if you've planned that in advance.
Correct. Having that backup data, yes, Gary. The IT, the technology now is incredible, and to be able to have that stored off-site at another location, have that backup, whether it's a cloud of some sort. There's many different programs out there, but you got to back it up. You don't want to lose that. You got to be resilient.
Yeah. Bert, let me ask you a question. One of the things that we've done here consistently is exercise our business continuity plan. Talk a moment about that, and why is that so important?
Gary, it's very important. It's critical, I would say, is that you have 4 steps of your business continuity plan. You have your plan, you develop your plan, and you create your processes. Then you've got to train your employee base, and you've got to exercise that plan. And then you go right into the 3rd phase, which is your after-action report and your lessons learned. And then you go right back into the last phase, which is your action steps to create those or establish those lessons learned and put them back into your plan. It's got to be a living, breathing process, and it's constantly evolving. And the one thing that we do here at Cox, Gary, as you mentioned, is we test our plans every year. And we do a formal tabletop exercise where we challenge our employees, we challenge our leadership, and we give them situations that are going to help us be prepared in the event of a natural disaster or an emergency.
We prepare and hope we never have to execute.
Yes, sir.
You're right. Hui-Shan, let me ask you we only have just a couple of seconds left. If there's one thing that you would stress that someone could take away, what is that one thing in terms of their planning for in an event of a disaster?
Exactly. I would piggyback on my colleague here, Bert, is really to have a plan and to test it and to ensure that it works. And that would be the number one thing I stress. And then you have your supply kit to support that plan. And so as a region, we work in partnership with Cox, and we have this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us today, Bert. Thank you for all you do. And thank you for joining me on this episode of Cox Connections. Before you go, I want to personally thank you for choosing Cox Communications for your entertainment, information, and communication needs. We know you could have chosen another provider, but because you chose us, we pledge to be a friend that you can trust. We promise to provide you with quality products backed up by a team of talented professionals that will help you stretch your dollar. From all of your friends and neighbors here at Cox, we thank you again for choosing us and for joining us on this edition of Cox Connections.